Hello again, Blue Prism learners like me. Today, I'd like to talk a little bit about session variables. It's actually part of the advanced consolidation exercise. So I'm going to be using that same process that we used in the consolidation exercise to discuss this concept. Session variables are like a cousin to environmental variables. In that they can be accessed from outside of the process layer, right? What we're looking at is the process layer. There are many variables here, like if you wanted to change this item attempts, you have to do it here. But if you expose a variable outside of the process environment, then you can change it outside of the process layer. One such instance is when you use environmental variables, which we discussed earlier on in the, shall we say, preparation for the exercise. Typically, you find those in the system, processes, environmental variables section. And what you do is any variable that has the potential to be shared by multiple processes is better off placed in such a place. Or if it's something that you might need to change at some time in the future, then it's always good to put it in an environmental variable and put it in the system area. Because if you change it at this point or in this place, then it changes in all the processes that you use it in at the same time. So it's actually more convenient to do it this way. But session variables are not like environmental variables. I just discussed that you can change an environmental variable. If I start running a process from the control room and I make a change to this environmental variable here, the change is not going to take effect until the next time the process runs. In other words, you can't change it mid-process. And that's the differentiation between session variables and environmental variables. Session variables, you can actually change them while the process is running. For example, if you had this process running, maybe and there were like 1,000 items in the queue and you no longer wanted to wait until those 1,000 items were processed, you could change it using a social variable. You could change the number of items it's processing to, say, 50 and stop it at the 50th item, even while the process is running. So, having said that, we're going to go through like a practical example. These two items here have already been separated for us as stopping control settings inside this box here, or block. And you'll notice that they left a note here that says session variables because they want us to demonstrate our knowledge of the concept. So when you want to convert this to a session variable, all you have to do is expose. So normally it would look like this, right? It's a none. This was how it was when it came to us in the export of the advanced consolidation exercise. So when I imported it, I got data items that look like this. So what we're expected to do in this scenario is change this to session variables. Just say OK. Do the same thing for this one. Exposure is not none. Expose it to the control room, right? So once you've done that, you've essentially converted these two items into session variables, right? Typically, you will have like an initial value in a session variable. You always do. But you can change it at any time from the control room, even while the process is running, right? So this is all you're required to do to convert like an ordinary data item to a session variable. Just that. Change the exposure from none to session. And save. So I'll say it again. I changed the exposure of the two of them here stop after time, and stop after items to session type variables. Okay. Now, before I leave, this stop after time data item is typically used when you want to control the time in which your automation stops, right? So the default time here is 6:30 p.m. Right? If you wanted to change, if you wanted the process you are running to stop at a given time, you just put whatever that time is, and the process will stop. So you have the ability to alter it. And then the same thing for items. Items represent, like the queue items, right? The items in your queue. So right now we have an initial value of 50, but if I wanted to change it to say 5 or 6, I could do that, right? It's flexible, but you do have to put like an initial value to get it off. But the point is that the idea of session variables is you're supposed to be able to control them outside of the process layer. So you see this stop decision here? It's an example of when you use these things. If you alter stop after items or stop after time in the control room, this decision stage here is going to kick in, right? So the logic you have here is it says that if stop after items is equal to 0, or the local time is greater than the stop after time, then close down, right? So that logic is inbuilt into this process. You didn't have to do that, it was already there. And now we're going to demonstrate how these session variables work very briefly. So I'm going to close this. I didn't make any changes since the last time. And I'm going to go to the control room right here. As usual, we drag the process itself onto the resource. And once you do that, you're going to find this it's orange here and ready to go. There are 3 things here: start selected sessions, stop selected sessions, and show session variables. Right, if I click show session variables now, I have to actually run the process before you'll see the variables. So let me minimize this. I'm doing that so that we can watch the 2 of them concurrently run. So the browser is on this side, like this, and we'll close it. And then I've selected the pending session, and I'm going to click start. Then I'm going to click on show again. You see, it has showed the 2 variables. One of them is stop after items, the other is stop after time. It is noteworthy here that this process started running at 5:11:45 a.m. And you see the start time? So if I wanted to change it, if I wanted to stop at 15 a.m., I just click edit value and move it out of the way here. So I'll change this to 5:15 a.m. and then hit modify. So if I'm correct, this process will run for about 5 minutes and just stop because I've changed the deal now. If I didn't do that, it would have continued running until 6:30 p.m. tomorrow if it had enough queue items. So we're just kind of testing the ability to change the way the program behaves even while it is running, which is a characteristic of session variables. Now I'm drinking a 0 Heineken, okay? 0% Heineken. I don't encourage drinking while we're waiting for this 5 minutes to pass. Okay? See, it is written Heineken 00, right? So don't drink. It's not good for you. going to keep running the cases, but don't forget what's going to happen is that at 5:15 a.m. it's going to, because we modified that time, it's going to shut the process down whether it's finished or not. So from what I see here, we have about a minute more for that to happen. Let's hope it works out as planned. So as you can see, it has logged out and it's basically shutting the program down right now. Just like we instructed, stop at 5:15. There were 50 cases. It should have worked all of them to the end if not for that change we made. So I think that's a pretty good illustration. I really don't want to make this video a long one. You can see it says completed here. So it has stopped because we asked it to stop at 5:15, right? And if you look at the end time, it says here 5:15. And what it did was that as soon as 5:15 stopped, it made sure it wasn't in the middle of anything, and then it stopped after the last case it treated. So sometimes it might take it a few moments to like finish up what it was doing, but it will tend to stop before the next queue item. That's the general idea. So I hope you are able to understand the concept of session variables. The last thing I think is noteworthy about them is that, under normal circumstances, you wouldn't be running, like what you just saw now that I'm running my automation side by side on the same computer. It's not the typical scenario in the real world. You'll probably be running it on a virtual computer and you don't even need to see what's going on. It's just running, right? And so why I'm saying that is that it's possible to have like 2 or 3 different sessions of the same robot running on different computers at the same time. So I think what is relevant is that even you can change the variables in one and not change in another, the session variables in one and not change in another. It is that flexible. You can choose one running process and say, you know what, stop this one at 5:15, and then the other one you can leave to stop at 12 midnight. It's just going to do whatever you say, specifically depending on your instructions. If you don't give it any instructions, it will follow the normal procedure. So that's all there is to it, and it's not much complicated than that. Thanks for watching. Have a nice evening. Bye.